Welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to continue to learn how to rewrite literal equations and formulas. This is a second part of two videos. If you have not watched the first one, I will strongly recommend that you do that before you watch this video. If you have, let's dive into this problem. Now, this one says, solve the temperature formula for F. In case you're not familiar with this, F stands for Fahrenheit and C stands for Celsius. Now, in this particular problem, we can know we know that if we plug in a temperature in Fahrenheit here for F, if we plug it in here for F, we can get our temperature in Celsius. But what if we want to know our temperature in Fahrenheit and we have the temperature in Celsius? Well, that's why we're solving for F. That is why we're solving for F. We're solving for F so that if we have the temperature in Celsius, we can plug in that temperature for C and obtain our temperature in Fahrenheit. Now, how do we do this? Well, in order to isolate F, there are two things that we have to move. We need to move this 5/9 and we need to move this -32. So we got to move them to the other side. Now, we are going to move them the same way that we have been moving everything else. We're going to be using inverse operations. Well, how can I move that 5/9? Well, the way that I move it is by dividing by 5/9, and the reason is because this 5/9 is multiplying this F minus 32. Remember all of this, because it's inside the parentheses, it's a whole quantity. Now, one thing that I tell students is that, let me take you back to dividing fractions. You learned that if you divide 1/2 by 3/4, I'm going to use an example, what you actually do is you multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction in order to divide, and that will give you 4/6, well, which is 2/3, right? Yes, which is 2/3. Now here, instead of dividing by 5/9, what I would recommend that you do is do the reciprocal from the beginning. So multiply by the reciprocal of that fraction, which will be 9/5. Now, check this out. When I multiply 9/5 times C, I end up with 9/5 times C. Now, this 9/5 times 5/9, they cancel each other out, or they get simplified to 1. Now, because I got rid of that, these parentheses, they can go away, and now I can look at this as two different quantities in order to move this -32. Well, how can I move that -32? I can move it by adding 32 on both sides. And we will end up with, I'm going to write that over here, 9/5 C plus 32 is equal to F. Or this can be written as F is equal to 9/5 C plus 32. So notice how our variable of F is isolated and how we were able to do this. Now, here is a slightly different problem. In this particular problem, we're working with a simple interest formula, and we have to solve for R. R is the ratio. So go ahead and pause this video and see if you can solve this problem. After you're done, you can come back and see whether or not you solved it correctly. Okay, hopefully you paused this video. This can be a little bit complicated because I think for the first time in Algebra 1, you don't see any numbers. It's just variables. Now, what you have to keep in mind is that these variables, they represent arbitrary numbers, any numbers, okay? So we need to treat them as such. Now, if these are numbers or arbitrary numbers, these variables represent arbitrary numbers, because they are next to each other, that means that they're multiplying with each other. So we have P or I is equal to P times R times T. P times R times T. Well, if P, R, and T are multiplying each other, are multiplying R, and I want to leave R alone, what will be the opposite of multiplying P and T? And if you said the opposite of multiplying R times P and times T is dividing R by P and T, you are correct. You are exactly correct. So over here, we will finish with our formula of I divided by P times T is equal to R. Because this P and these T's, they cancel each other out. Well, they get simplified to 1. And again, I can just rewrite this as R is equal to I divided by P times T, or PT.